Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. You're listening to the Women's Broadcast Television Expert Spotlight Show, and I'm your host, Shay Vaughn. WBTVN is the all-women's internet television station with content that's created by women and for women. And today, joining us on WBTVN is our expert, and let me tell you a little bit about this amazing woman. Dr. Susan Elderman is a clinical associate professor at Stanford University in the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences. She is a board-certified psychiatrist in private practice, specializing in women's issues. Susan is the author of the multi-award-winning best-selling book, Be Your Own Brand of Sexy: A New Sexual Revolution for Women, and as well as a former guest on many radio and television shows. And thank you so much for joining us here on the Women's Broadcast Television Network.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, I'm telling you, you've got so many things that you've done and helped so many people and answers that people need. I want to start by just asking you, though, growing up, how did you get to where you are right now?
Well, I was always interested in women's issues. I was part of, the women's movement. So it was very exciting when I grew up to know that I was going to do something more than other women had been able to, that I had so many more opportunities. And it was very, very exciting to feel like all kinds of doors were open to me that other women didn't have.
That's amazing. And when you take advantage of those doors opening and you put together all of the things that you have, and I love the book, your own brand of sexy, business and life. So tell me how this amazing book that you wrote, and how did you actually come up with, the title of it?
Well, I came up with the title because someone else came up with it. I was just telling people what I was doing and working with a lot of people who had fabulous ideas. So they helped craft it.
I gotcha.
But the idea for the book came from a young woman who's the daughter of one of my dearest childhood friends. And she went off to college and called me for dating advice. And I'll call her Emma to protect her privacy.
Absolutely.
Emma said, "Susan, the guys are asking me to come over and hang out. What does that mean?" And, I wasn't really sure, but I knew it wasn't an invitation to dinner and a movie. So as it turned out, Shaya, these guys just wanted her to come over and have casual sex. And it was so disappointing for her and for me because I loved college dating. So it was kind of a disappointing experience for both of us. And I thought, this is not what we had in mind with the women's movement and the sexual revolution. I didn't think equality meant guys were going to start to take casual sex for granted. Right. And I was so sad for my young friend and felt guilty that maybe we and the generation before me had kind of created this. And she said, "Susan, you have to do something about this." And I thought, maybe I can.
And so that began. And, and I was thinking when you were saying, and they just want me to come over and have, sex, and I'm thinking, and they don't love me. It's kind of like, yeah, and they don't even know you. And, yeah. And I think that's, what that's all about. So, what are the beliefs of, rape culture when you're talking about this subject? What is that, what can you do about all of that?
Well, I think the concern with a rape culture is that we're talking about the sexual objectification of women and the denial of harm caused by that objectification. And so we have to worry when women start to want to be sex objects, because then we're starting to deny the harm involved with that. And a lot of us may not see that we might be letting men treat us badly. So this is a very important topic for us to keep discussing, because unfortunately, the way things are going in our culture, there's so much pressure on women to be sexy and sexual that sometimes we get so caught up in it, we don't realize the dangers involved. And it's hurting confidence and women's love lives.
So I want to get back really deep into this, even before, kind of like talking about what we have. And that is, I almost feel like, women, little babies growing up, coming out of the womb and growing up, is almost taught to be sexual, to use their sexuality to get them to where they think that it's going to get them. And yet what you're really talking about is the dangers in that culture, the dangers of not being aware, the dangers of, no, this isn't about somebody loving you, and this is going to be, something's going to be an equal, relationship. And those things really bother me because I feel that women to evolve, I definitely feel that women united are changing the world. And I think, and they can, but I would like to see them, I want them to put their big lady pants on and get rid of the sexuality or the flirtation of that to think that that's going to get you to where you want to be. Those are the things that trouble me.
It's a problem, because when you're thinking that's the be all and end all, and that it's a little like driving in your car to a strange new city and you can't figure out how to get there because you've disabled your GPS. And it's the same way, because when we think it's all about how we look and how much sex we're having, we're kind of tuning out our instincts and intuition, and we're not really trying to figure out what's right for us as individuals, because what's right for me is probably different than what's right for you, and we're all different.
We're all different, and we need to recognize that. And this isn't about putting shame or judgment or any of those things for whatever choices that we make. I think that as we get out of those stages and realize that there's so much more to it, to a relationship that takes into consideration so many, valuable points. And it's all about give and take and really caring about the other person. So when we get past that drive, that sexual drive to get what you want. I mean, I think you're always looking for those other things, but it's okay if it's not there in the beginning.
But I think there is a lot of shame in our culture now, and that's part of how we're pressuring each other. Like Lady Gaga at the Super Bowl, and they're saying she's got some little piece of skin on her that's not completely perfect, or even the cultural pressures about sex these days. It used to be that if you had sex before marriage, you were a tramp, and now if you're a virgin, you're a prude. That is not liberation.
Yeah,
liberation is the freedom to choose.
Those are extremes, right? Those are extremes.
Yes, but girls are ashamed to be virgins these days. They want to get it over with because they're ashamed of it. And that's really sad.
You mean ashamed of it from the standpoint of not wanting to be a virgin, not wanting to not have that experience, not knowing. But where do we get to when we get to the point where we've got kids that are, 9 and 10 years old in school, girls that are giving, blowjobs to guys because they want to learn more about what this is all about. They're not getting anything out of it.
Exactly.
They're just, I think just, doing it for the sake of, being popular or feeling better about themselves. But in the end, they don't feel any of that. They feel shame. That's the different kind of shame.
There's just too much pressure. Everything is about looks and sex, and we've forgotten the value of inner beauty and how important it is to love yourself and see the beauty in yourself that maybe people can't see from the outside.
And maybe that's true, but I also feel that young kids that have a lot of pressure where this subject is, that we're talking about in school at an early age, they just want approval. they aren't capable of going this inter-beauty and all the things, that will resonate at some point in time in their life. They just want their classmates to accept and to care about them. And they think that, doing some of these things is going to be the acceptance of it. But we all learn that that's absolutely not what happens. And so I want to go back to what's the role of parenting, and how open are we really with our kids in some of these areas. And of course, I think that, that we talk to them about it and tell them that, these are choices and you want to really be prepared for what those choices that you're going to make really is all about. And I think just maybe sharing your own stories as a mom and really getting real with your kids, because they see you as mom and you can do anything. They're young. They grow up and figure out that that's not true either, which it shouldn't be.
Right.
We make mistakes too. But I mean, I think that they just, want somebody else to tell them that, it's okay. You don't have to have the approval of everybody in school and whatever, that this too will pass, kind of a situation. Many stories written in books regarding a lot of that too, that I think are very important and appropriate for kids of that age to really be exposed to.
You're so right. And I think parents sometimes are afraid to talk about sex with their kids. The studies show that parents think they're having way more conversations with their kids than the kids think they're having with them about sex.
Oh, totally.
So it's a tough topic to bring up, and parents think, oh, maybe they want to protect their children from some of it, but it's everywhere. There's no avoiding it. So if you don't talk about it, they're just going to get information elsewhere.
Well, Dr. Susan, it's funny, when I get on this subject and hear all the great things that you're sharing, I think about my own kids. And it was like I did talk to them a lot and very open-minded about things. But my best times is when I could get them in the car and they weren't, talking to a friend or, on the phone or doing something else. I just, I could capture them, right in that, and they had to listen to me. And growing up later on, they say, Mom, every time you got us in the car, that's all you wanted to do. Tell me about it, and I go, well, that's probably true, but I felt that was the time that we had together. I didn't have to share you with the rest of the world. And I was concerned, and I wanted to, to make sure that you had, a good view of right and wrong and the choices that you make. And we all make choices that are, not good. But when we do it less and less and less, that's a good thing.
Well, that was clever of you.
Yeah.
You didn't run off either.
Maybe we should market that, sexy brand and whatever, and capture your kids and talk to them about sex when you're in the car with them, because you have their attention for sure. So what is the secrets of feminine power? I mean, you talk a lot about that. And I definitely believe that we all have power. I don't know that we know how to use it or what it's all about, but we definitely have it. But I think that how you word that feminine power, of course, if we're women, it's going to be feminine, and male, it's going to be, masculine. But tell me a little bit about that power of feminine.
Well, I think in our culture today, we're a little confused about what gives us power. And so some women think having casual sex gives them power, calling men gives them power. But real power is figuring out what works for you as an individual and standing up for that, whatever it is that you want. Having the courage to say, no, I'm not comfortable with that, or, that's not what I want to do. Because I think that approval that you talk about so well is a big part of it. Even when we're grown up, we still want approval. And so we may be trying to please the man instead of really trying to figure out what's right for us as individuals. But unless you're really honest with yourself about whether something's working for you and having the courage to say no to what isn't working, that's not really power.
Right. What I think is interesting too, though, it's like when a man opens a door for you, it isn't because he has to do that or he's expected to do that. It's really done because he cares about you and because he wants to be a gentleman. And it's no different than, you know, women cooking something or doing something, you know, that they're good at and serving their partner in life. And I think that's really what it's all about, and not a judgment kind of thing, like, oh, I have to do this because this is what's expected of me, or I have to do this. No, it's kind of like you want somebody to want to do this, to treat you right, just as though you want to do that same thing in favor back.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because men are so confused about what women want these days, because so many women don't like that. And I think
they know what they want.
And they feel, a lot of women, you know, they don't appreciate the nice things men do because they feel conflicted. They feel like, if I'm a strong and independent woman, is it okay for me to get help from a man? And of course it is. We all need help now and then. And you want to be able to appreciate a nice man who wants to be nice to you. That's a good thing. Otherwise, you're going to train a man not to treat you so well.
Right. I mean, it sounds to me like we're having so much conflict in all of these stages of life, even as, you know, adults and beyond that. And the truth of the matter is, if it's coming from love and it's coming from all of the right places, it's okay. You know, we're going to make some mistakes, but one thing that we do have the right to do is don't do something because somebody else wants you to do it. Do it because you feel comfortable with it, and make that decision because you feel that it's the right thing for you. And that's a really hard stage to get to at any age. But what I'm interested in is your 5 secrets to love, because I think everybody wants to have love in their heart. And I think that many, and some people obviously don't, but, you know, they experience love through parenting, you know, through family, and through that. But then you get to this one-on-one male-female, you know, relationships. And it's like, you know, we grow up as human beings. What we're supposed to do is to find a partner and love them. And, you know, what I say is, I think it's absolutely, you always love, but you don't always like somebody, or you don't always agree with them. And I think that's just normal life. That's just, you know, I think you have to put things in perspective.
Well, I agree. I think we've already talked about a few of the secrets, but maybe we can talk a little bit more about exactly what being your own brand of sexy is, because that can be confusing for people. And that's really about figuring out what you want, what works for you as an individual, and what strategies will help you achieve your relationship goals, whatever they may be. So it's really tuning in to yourself. And there are some guidelines to help you with that. And one is, you know, to recognize you always have options, because I think a lot of women don't know when they have a choice, because they are so focused on pleasing someone else. And 2, of course, is media and peer pressure solutions might not be right for you, as we've discussed. 3 is slow can be sexy, because I think women don't realize that, you know, there's a lot of anticipation and excitement that builds when you wait to have sex, and as opposed to doing it quickly, the way our culture is kind of portraying as the ideal. 4 is your voice matters. That's standing up for yourself. And 5 is, if a guy isn't respecting your voice, move on. You know, you want to be able to express it and give him a chance to hear you. You don't want to just dump him before you've done that. But if a guy doesn't get it, or, you know, doesn't care how you feel about something, it's probably not going to work out.
It's probably not. But I think as women, we're going to try to make it work. You know? We're going to work at making it work. You know? Instead of realizing that you can't change. I do think that so many women, and maybe even men, but I think more so where women is concerned, and please correct me if I'm not right, but in everything that I read and research on, you know, women think that, you know, when they get married, they're going to change that person. And they're going to, you know, that he's not going to have these same habits that you didn't like in the first place, and they're going to do this. Now, is there modifying some things through communication, or things that just, you know, don't fit well with you or whatever. Of course there is. But thinking you're ever going to change anyone is a recipe for failure.
Yeah, and he's going to feel criticized all the time because he's never going to meet up to what you want.
Right. And if you've got this big long list, what did you get married for in the first place?
Yeah.
It's easy, it's easier to say, if this isn't working or whatever, it's going to cause, issues in your life. And yet women just kind of hold on to, no, I'm going to make it work. I'm going to change him. It's not going to be the same. It's kind of like, and then you go through a divorce, you go through them, and you go, what was I thinking? That's my next book, by the way. What was I thinking? I have so many times in my life I go, what was I thinking? I mean, we do that, and that's not such a bad thing as long as you can learn from that and have less of those times in your life, right?
Definitely.
So,
we all learn. Hopefully we are all learning from the mistakes we made.
Well, and those are the best way to, because I think we all have to make mistakes to do it. But the degree of those can certainly be lessened. And I think that's what you're talking about. And I so embrace that. But, we also talk about, I said, I definitely believe Women United are changing the world, and they are. And I'm going to give you a scenario, though, that is so deep into my soul that it bothers me. And I do believe in walk the walk and talk the talk. And this is what it is. I definitely believe in collaboration. And it's a big word that people talk about a lot. But the truth of the matter is, I'll tell you, women don't do it well. Because they do bring, jealousy, competition, sexuality, flirting to get to where they want to go. And, my philosophy is I don't even care if somebody's doing some of the same things that I'm doing. I want to find a way to partner with them. I want women to come together for all of the right reasons. And I know that you talk so much about the need for sisterhood. And I love sisterhood. I mean, I just really embrace that. I own it. I embrace it. I live it. I want it to be in everybody's life because I think that they're missing so much. And it's not about the lip service that you give to it. It's what you give of yourself to help to bring this together so that we are united as women and that we continue to make the right choices and the partnerships that will benefit everyone.
Well, of course, I completely agree with you. I think women don't realize we're all in the same boat together with so many of these issues. So when we're picking on some woman's body or finding fault with whatever choices she's making, we don't realize that we're all struggling with the same issues. And the more we can see that and really accept and love our sisters for themselves, it could be very healing for all of us. I mean, 60% of women almost are unhappy with the way they look because our culture is pressuring us to look a certain way that's completely unrealistic and unattainable. And the more we all support each other without having to criticize our imperfections and just, be accepting and loving of who we are on the inside as well as the outside, that would really be tremendously healing for all women to feel.
I so agree with you. I mean, I just so agree with you. So what kind of excuses do women really make for men that get these men off the hook for, bad behavior, for instance?
Well, there's a few really good ones. Of course, the important point is for women to try and be honest if they're making those mistakes, because I can only cover a few. But one of the classics is, well, I should cut him some slack. He can't make commitment, but he had a terrible breakup with his ex. She really did a number on him. But this woman really wants commitment, so that's not helping her one little bit, right? Exactly. Or maybe, we don't see each other very often, but hey, he works for a startup. He's really busy. So we end up telling ourselves things that are saying we don't deserve any better. Well, we make excuses from that.
Exactly. So they don't even have to give us the excuse. We actually just kind of make it up for. I mean, we come up with it.
Right.
We don't even care.
Oh, he was late. He must have been stuck in traffic.
Exactly. So, words of wisdom, you've just given us so much. what do you really have to say about what are some of just the basic things that you think are really important that you want that message to resonate with the women that are tuned in and watching this show? And let me just tell you, there's 50% of men that are watching it too.
Oh, wonderful. Now, I think this message applies to men too. They have a little different kind of issue. They have to figure out how to please us, and are they gonna, if they don't have this, if they say no to sex, is somebody gonna say they're gay? I mean, they have different pressures, but it's still about figuring out what's right for you as an individual. And I think the biggest thing is, we tell ourselves that protection today means condoms and birth control pills, but protecting your heart is huge, and only you know what's right for you. So think about protecting yourself and taking care of yourself.
So the last question I'm going to ask you is, what's the secret to getting what you want really from men?
Well, I think one of the biggest secrets
Don't
is,
tell me it's sex. I'm teasing.
I think it's really tuning into your instincts and intuition about what you want and having the courage to stand up for those.
Yeah.
And I think the more we're focused on, are my thighs fat? Do I need breast implants? Does he think I'm thin enough? The less we're really tuning into, what do I want, and what's right for me? Am I comfortable with this man?
And I think communication, I really have to put this in, because I think that we don't communicate those things. Not men telling us what they want, or women really, expressing what their needs are and what they want. And I think that the more that you can communicate, whether it's in bed or out of bed, which is two different things, because sometimes people really communicate well in bed, and they get out and it's like a different world. They don't talk about anything else. It's kind of like, where do you want to go to dinner? And then you play this game, like, well, where do you want to go? And, well, I'm not sure. Well, you make the choice. And I mean, it's craziness that really takes place in relationships.
Definitely. And I think we're afraid of getting rejected, or somebody's not going to like us, so we don't say anything. But it can be simpler than we think sometimes, because, the experts say you should use I language, which is less critical than you always do this or you're doing that, but more like I feel or I don't feel. So you could say, well, I'm not comfortable with that, or I'm not sure how I feel about that, or let me think about it. If you can't say no right then, but try and say something. But it's hard to communicate if you're not in touch with how you feel, because you're thinking your thighs are too fat or something.
Yes.
So you've got to identify what you're feeling, and I think the second step is to communicate it, but make it easy on yourself.
Yeah,
you can just say, I don't know how I feel right now.
Yeah, and I think it's just okay to do that too. I'm not quite sure, and so I just need a little bit of time to maybe think about that, and I will come back to you and we can discuss it. I think that those are the things that we need to take time when we're not sure, because anything short of that is probably not going to be giving an answer that's going to lead to any kind of happiness. You're either going to regret what you said, or that person is going to take it literal, and it's not really what you want. Yeah.
And, sometimes when we're not familiar with speaking up for ourselves, it could come out a little harsher than we hoped to. So it's good to, kind of practice some things that you might say, because some dating situations are predictable, right? That something might come up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely believe practice does make perfect. And I do believe that sometimes we don't even think to do that. Like, how would I say that if I get asked, this, and not come across as being, too bold, or, or just, someone that doesn't really know what they're doing, that kind of thing. And yet being confident in saying that in a way that, really gets the message across that I really do need this time, and I will come back to you, that kind of thing.
So you can start with, I really appreciate the offer, or that's really nice, or, that's a great suggestion. Let me think about it. I'm not sure what I want to do yet, huh?
And I think when you were doing, you got to think about how you're going to set that up and how it's going to come across, because words are powerful. and we need to use them in the manner in which we really want to get that message across and be heard. And I think that's important. Yeah, Dr. Susan, I just have loved having you on the show today as our expert spotlight key speaker.
Thank you. It's my honor to be with you. Thank you so much for having me.
And where can people reach you on your website?
So my website is beyourownbrandofsexy.com. You can take a quiz to find out if you're being your own brand of sexy. And I have a weekly blog, and I'm on Facebook. So
Very good.
you
So
can find me on
people
those
can
places.
reach you and take the test. I'm gonna jump on today and take the test, and I'll send you a note on that. I just want to thank the audience for joining us today. And until the next time, live a healthier life, and really think about, what it is that you want and how you can express that in a kind and giving way. Thank you so much.